I call this meeting to order. I will take a roll call of committee members. Committee members, please confirm you are present. James Boscario. Present. Valentina Bernoni.
Present.
Maria Ferraro.
Present.
And Vince Marcotte. Alan Burgess, Supervisor of Planning and Development and Deputy Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment.
Present.
And I'm your chair, Teresa Nicodemo. I'd like to read a land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is in the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation of the Three Fires Confederacy and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron, Wendat, and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. I'd also like to read an appeal notice. As a result of provincial changes to the Planning Act, only the applicant and select agencies may appeal a decision of the committee or one or more of the conditions which were imposed. Third-party appeals of consent and/or minor variances, such as neighbors, abutting property owners, are no longer allowed to be accepted by the OLT. All applications continue to be subject to a 20-day appeal period and a written request to receive a copy of the decision, and the fee for filing an appeal may be obtained from the Secretary Treasurer. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests? Okay, seeing none, so noted. Adoption of the minutes from the March 22nd, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion for that? Okay, moved by Vince Marcotte, seconded by Val Bernoni. And all in favor? And it's carried. Mr. Burgess, are there any requests for deferral or withdrawal of any application?
Not this evening.
So noted. So the first application is A-01-2023, file 4155. The owner is 5009741 Ontario Limited for a minor variance to allow a reduction lot area for a proposed townhouse. Mr. Burgess, to make a presentation on the variance application.
Thank you, Chair. The application before you this evening is for a minor variance to reduce the minimum lot area for the proposed townhouse dwelling. In the diagram before you illustrates the subject lands as it's located on Major Boulevard. The property is currently, as of August 30th, 2001, the Town of LaSalle approved and adopted Bylaw 8600, which is the town's new comprehensive zoning bylaw. As part of that document, it implements the policies and the objectives of our official plan. These lands are zoned Waterfront Development 2. They have a permitted minimum lot area for a townhouse of 300 square meters per unit. Therefore, with 3 units, the applicant would require to have 900 square meters. The application before you this evening is to permit a townhome with 3 units with 880 square meters. Mathematically, that's a difference of 20 square meters, or on a per unit basis of approximately 7 square meters. In our official plan, which was adopted by Council on October the 18th, or 2018, the property was designated waterfront development, and that document implements and actually was before its time in its insight into the movement of the province to allow for what's referred to as gentle intensification and the allowances for additional multiple dwellings to be created within neighborhoods. And the example that we have before us this evening is just that. It's a utilization of existing services on an existing street with that concept of gentle intensification. The sketch before you illustrates a concept of the dwelling which is being proposed to be constructed. It illustrates basically a 3-unit dwelling, complying with the zoning regulations with regards to the size of the units, the width of the units, the side yard restrictions, the rear yard restrictions, as well as the front yard restrictions. These units have a garage within each and allows for a parking space in front, therefore complying completely with the zoning bylaw, like with the exception of the minimum lot area. And in addition to the comment that I made earlier, with a lot of this width and of this depth, it would be, had this lot been approximately 2 feet wider, a minor variance would not have been required, and this application would have gone directly to a building permit. In summary, the application, as we've said, is a townhouse, which is a permitted use within the waterfront district zone. It should be noted that the zone no longer permits the construction of a single detached dwelling, nor does it allow the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. This zoning will only permit the construction of townhomes, apartments, mixed-use buildings, offices, and commercial type redevelopments. The official plan, as I've mentioned, encourages the infilling and utilization of existing services. The proposed townhome creates a mixture of housing options, which is encouraged within the official plan and is encouraged by the province. In discussions with our engineering department, engineering staff have confirmed that there's sufficient servicing capacity to allow for the 3 units to be constructed at this location. That includes all services, including water, sanitary, and storm. Each of the proposed units will have an approximate area of about 293 square meters. And as I said, that's only slightly less than what's currently required. There have been a number of comments from neighbors who have submitted to us in writing their concerns. The majority of those comments have raised issues with regards to the surrounding neighborhood, the types of homes which they currently reside in, concerns about the addition of this type of a dwelling in their neighborhood. They're concerned about parking, traffic, servicing, with those comments, I believe within the report as well as within the comments which I've just provided, those comments have been largely addressed. As I've said, the zone and the matter before you tonight is not whether or not we are dealing with whether a townhouse should be permitted or whether the unit is too large as far as its setbacks. The issue before you is with regards to lot area. And the lot area was determined as a result of discussions with our engineering department. And like I said, in further discussions with them, they feel it is appropriate to allow for that reduction in lot area. So I would just like to say that, in my professional opinion, in reviewing the 4 tests as have been outlined in our report and in reviewing the concerns and the comments of the neighbors, the application that is before you is in keeping. It's in keeping with our official plan. It's in keeping with the zoning bylaw. There is nothing else that I could really add with regards to its ability to comply. And I'd leave it at that. Thank you. I guess the only last thing I would address is there was one change in the presentation material. And basically what we have done is we've added some conditions, and I've discussed those with the applicant. So we will be asking for the copy of the 12R plan to illustrate the property. They'll ensure that all their property taxes are paid in full, that cash in lieu with regards to parkland is paid for the 2 additional dwelling units which will be constructed. They will be submitting all the appropriate lot grading plans and to ensure that there's no issues with regards to drainage and servicing. They will apply for a right-of-way permit, and that permit is to allow for them to do the installation of the services. They will be utilizing bonded and approved contractors. As I said, they will ensure the conformity with regards to services. They will provide an as-built drawing after they've constructed the services, so that in the future, if town forces need to do any improvements or changes, they'll know exactly where those services are located. And they will provide securities so that if there are any difficulties during construction of or the installation of the services, that we can ensure that the road and/or the services can be repaired and put into full working order. And I would give it back to the committee. Thank you.
Sir Michael Hebert, owner agent here, present. You may now speak to the matter, please. You can sit up here. Yeah. Please introduce yourself in a brief explanation of your application, and please confirm you have read and understood the staff report.
Hi, Michael Hebert. Yeah, I confirm I've read the report. Just working with the planning department here to conform to, like Alan mentioned, the W2 zoning of this property.
Okay. Is there anybody present or online that would like to speak to the application? And yes, I'm sorry.
I live directly across the street, and I know that this man has got.
Just one moment, please.
If you could come forward, I'll step away from the chair and then speak.
Could you please state your name and your address?
Marlene Bertelli. My address is 95 Major.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Now, the reason I'm against it is I live directly across the street. Now, I know that there's supposed to be parking, the ample parking for this building that's going up. And that's fine, but if they have company, there is no place to park. We have a small street, which means they will park on my grass. And it's not only that, we have a quiet street. It's a beautiful street, and it's going to change. And there's going to be more traffic because there's going to be 3 different people, families living in that building. And I am against it.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have any, I guess, questions for, I'll say for the, for this Mrs. Marley, I'm sorry,
Bertelli?
For Ms. Fratelli? Vince?
Sorry, there we go. Your concern is the fact that it's 3 homes or even 1 home?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 3
families.
3 families, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, Mrs. Fratelli, I just want to just repeat what Mr. Burgess had mentioned, that today we are only here to vote on the committee's only here to vote on the lot reduction. You may have to appeal this, or it may have to be appealed to the Ontario Tribunal. It wasn't an issue of parking, that's all. We're only here to vote on,
The variance?
yeah, that's all. The variance of, to make sure that lot is just a lot reduction to fit the 3 units. So does anybody like to add to that? Maybe Al, anybody want to add to that, or, yes?
Thank you, Chair. As Mrs. Bertelli has indicated that she is concerned with regards to the parking which is going to be established at the property, our zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 2 parking spots, and they are meeting the requirements of the bylaw. With regards to the ability to appeal, the appeal is to yourselves. Like, sorry. There is no longer, as a result of changes within the Planning Act, which and that bill was introduced by the province, that we are no longer in a position where an individual, as a neighbor, is able to actually file an objection to the Ontario Municipal Board with regards to this matter. They need to, again, bring forward their concerns to your attention, and then it's up to yourselves to decide whether or not you believe that those concerns are valid as it relates to the variance which is being requested. And again, in this case, the variance which is being requested isn't for a reduction of parking. The variance which is being requested is with regards to the lot area. The applicant has demonstrated and will continue to demonstrate that they have the ability to park the required vehicles on the property. And again, and I don't know what the intentions are of the applicant. The current proposal does show that a large rear yard behind each of these units. They could always look and review the possibility of increasing the amount of space that they have in front of the unit. However, we don't necessarily want to encourage a large area of parking and have no green space for the individuals and the families who are going to reside in these units. The street is narrow. It is currently narrow, and as time goes on, there will be redevelopment of that area. And as that redevelopment continues, there'll be a reconstruction of that street. And as that reconstruction of that street happens, they'll most likely end up being on-street parking. The official plan for the municipality is a document which has a view of like 30 to 50 years. So it's over the long run in which these changes are going to happen. They're not going to happen overnight. This is the first vacant lot which is going to be redeveloped. And again, over time, the front road corridor will change, it will evolve, and there will be further redevelopment. But the application before you tonight is just for 20 square meters. And and like I've mentioned before, they do meet all other requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for correcting me on third-party appeal. Does the committee now have any questions for? Does anybody else want to speak on this matter? Any third-party members want to speak on this matter?
Chair, I'm just wondering if I can ask a question to Alan. Alan, if an apartment is a permitted use, correct? How many units are allowed in an apartment?
Thank you. The zone in that area allows, I believe it's 200 square meters it goes down to. So this property is actually 900 square meters. So you'd actually be able to build a apartment building with 8 units in it. Parking is actually for 8 units, it's only 1.5 spaces per unit. So again, so the individual would actually be able to place more units, and they would also be able to have, there would be more traffic perceived to be there. So, and the other thing is that, and maybe we could ask the applicant, I believe the proposed design of this unit would definitely be shorter than what an apartment would be if an apartment was built on the property.
Now, as far as the elevation of this proposal, is it a 1-story or a 2-story?
It's 1-story, 3 units, closer to like 1,000 square feet, or very small units, but 1-story high.
Yes, Maria, you want to address this, a question?
I just want to make a comment. I don't have a question. To all the concerned neighbors, I feel for you. I understand your frustrations. And it's just unfortunate that we can't control what the neighbor does, especially in this particular case. The applicant is complying with all the zoning provisions. And I just want to make that comment that I understand and I feel for you.
Any other questions then to Mr. Burgess or the agent? Are there any, does committee have any questions for administration? Vince?
Helen, this chart where it provided us with the heavy lines, is that roughly the property's lines?
The diagram before you with the air photo is the approximate limits of the property.
So, Ms. Bertelli, unfortunately, about half her front yard is on town property.
That is correct.
So the illusion is certainly that they would be parking on her front yard, could be parking in her front yard, but it really isn't her front yard.
That is correct. If an individual was to park along the side of the road, they would actually be parking on the municipal right-of-way. And again, as another possible solution in these type of situations would be a road closure. Like this road allowance is about 100 feet wide. If we were to go down to a 66-foot right-of-way, the applicant could purchase that property and still basically construct and build what's before you this evening. So, there's many different ways to approach this possibility. The option by leaving the road allowance the way it is, it does give the municipality the greatest options in the future as this property and as these properties redevelop, and gives options to the type of streetscape which would potentially be there should redevelopment occur in the future.
So in the diagrams that are now shown where it says Major Boulevard, that is not necessarily where Major Boulevard would eventually end up when the road, if and whenever the road would be reconstructed.
Through the chair, exactly, Mr. Marcotte. I think the best example is when if you look at the at Front Road where there was the new mixed-use building with the pizza restaurant and the apartments above it. I believe they've placed curbs now at the corners of the property, or if they haven't placed them there yet, there will be. And that is defining where the new road would be, and it would basically extend from that point. Just the same as any other newer street in LaSalle. I think as everyone can appreciate, in the early days of LaSalle, we built on stone roads and ditches. We evolved having to introduce hard top and introducing sidewalks. And as we moved forward, we then introduced sewers and curbs. And in an instance like this street, this is one of the older streets. And as time goes on, it will be redeveloped and it'll have a different format. The one advantage, as I was mentioning, though, is because the street is a wider right-of-way, it does give an ability to potentially create actual on-street parking where there would actually be places so that if there were small businesses eventually evolving in this area, it would allow for those on-street parking spots to take place while maintaining a larger thoroughfare to move the local traffic.
Thank you.
Having heard any comments or concerns made by administration, agencies, and the public, is the committee ready to make a decision? Is there a motion? Is there a motion to okay.
So moved.
Moved by Vince
As per the
Merkel.
recommendations.
As per the recommendations that were listed, seconded by Maria. All in favor? So this has been carried. Thank you. Next item is B-01-2023, file 4156. The owner Samar El Zayat, application for consent to create one new lot. Mr. Burgess to make a presentation on the severance application.
Thank you, Chair. The application before you this evening is going to allow for the creation of one new building lot to be created. The existing home will be demolished and removed, and that new lot will be created as has been outlined in the report. The subject lands zoned in our adopted zoning bylaw are zoned R1. And in the residential zone, both single and semi-detached dwellings are permitted as of right, along with apartments in houses. The official plan designates this property as being residential. And as I mentioned before, that document was approved and adopted in October of 2018. The sketch before you illustrates the proposed severances. Basically, they're preparing this property as for two lots. The first lot having 17 meters of frontage by a depth of 30 meters. The second lot having 22 meters of frontage and having a depth of 30 meters as well. Both these lots are in accordance with Bylaw 8600. Allowing these lots to be created. Both the severed and the retained lands exceed the minimum lot requirements for frontage as well as for lot areas. Both these lots will be fronted onto Michigan Avenue. And as I've mentioned before in our previous report, the ideals of infilling and the utilization of existing services is continuing here in the sense where we're allowing the removal of one home and the allowance for two homes to be built in its place. and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Yes, would you come up to the chair if you have a question? The lady. Please state your name, I'm sorry, and address. Please come up and, thank you so, yes.
I'm sorry, could we have the applicant's agent do their presentation first?
Sorry, I wasn't sure when you said if there's any questions you meant for the committee. I wasn't sure if you meant for the, okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, then we'll bring. No
I
problem.
apologize. So Sydney Bailey, I'm so sorry, I wasn't, okay. You may now speak, Sydney Bailey, to the matter. Please introduce yourself in a brief explanation of your application, and please confirm you have read and understood the staff report.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sydney Bailey. I am the agent on the application. As laid out tonight in the presentation, this is a severance for 2 residential lots. Both lots are to comply with the zoning bylaw. I have read and am in support of the recommendation by administration, and I'm available here for any questions.
Okay, is there anybody present or online that would like to speak? So, Mrs. Hill, please come up, state your question.
I'm Kathy Hill at 310 Delaware. I was just having a question, like I was just concerned with what kind of houses are going to be built there. They are smaller. Are they going to be like a 2-story type of house? And are they going to have garages, or is there going to be room for parking there? Like it's kind of a tight area.
Yes, Al, could you speak to that? Could you answer that question, please?
I can't speak to the unit design at this time because I'm not familiar with that. The agent might be able to help us out. However, the proposed size of the unit at 17 meters is actually exceeds the 15-meter minimum. There will be sufficient area there should the applicant choose to construct a garage. With regards to the type of unit which could be built there, the zoning bylaw and or the municipality is able to govern or require a certain type of home to be built. So we're unable to tell somebody that they have to build a 2-story home, or they can only build a 1-story home, or they have to build a raised ranch. Those would be restrictions which, in certain developments, a developer who's constructed the services and is building a development, they can place those kind of restrictions on through a restrictive title and covenant, but the municipality is unable to do that. And I don't know if the applicant maybe can give us some information if they know or if they've got a better idea on the style of the unit that they wish to build there.
So the detailed design of the residential lots are not known at this time. However, it is the intent that both will be compliant with the zoning restrictions. But it is not known at this time what type of unit they will be, or what the size or garage or whatnot. That we haven't gotten to that detailed design stage yet.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hill, would you want that information when it comes available?
Again, through you, your chair. The only thing I can add or assurance that I can give Mrs. Hill is that the size of the lot that is proposed will definitely be able to accommodate the minimal amount of parking which is required, which is 2 parking spaces. Whether the applicant decides to actually construct a garage and most likely I would expect that they would, but if they chose not to, they would still on their site plan have to demonstrate how 2 parking spots would be accommodated on their own property. So within, whether it's the blue square or the orange square, which is shown on our presentation, on both lots, they would have to demonstrate, even if they chose not to have a garage, that they would meet the minimum requirements in order to do our zoning check.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burgess. Does the committee members have any questions for Sydney Bailey? Does the committee members have any questions for administration? Val, yes.
Alan, again, like when they come up with their proposal for this house, proposed dwelling, if it doesn't comply, then they can always come back to the committee and it's subject to an approval. So there's also that safety factor in there too, right?
Yes, so if the applicant was for whatever reason to come back forward and they said, we need a further relief because we can't make the size of the height of the unit work or the width of the unit work because it's a corner lot or the side yards or rear yards, that would be an item which first we would have a lot of detailed discussions with the applicant and try and find solutions before we would come before the committee. But if it just could not be resolved that way, then we would send out another notice. Mrs. Hill and her neighbors around would all be notified of that, and they would have at that opportunity to voice their concerns to the committee to be reviewed and determined if it's a sound decision being made, and that the 4 tests are being achieved. However, I do strongly believe that based on the size of the property, it's the potential for the lot and the size of it. If you were to look at this property at 17.2 meters, it is very, very close to what was typically and what is typically found in LaSalle, which being a 60 by 100 foot lot. So I have no doubt that the applicant will be able to come up with a design which is fully compliant.
So having heard any comments or concerns made by administration, agencies, and the public, is the committee ready to make a decision? And is there a motion for the creation of 1 new lot? Moved by Val and seconded by Jim. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay. The next item is B-02-2023 file 4157. The owner LA Urban Living Limited, application for consent to create 5 lot additions. Mr. Burgess to make a presentation on severance application.
Thank you, Chair. The final item before us this evening is with regards to 5 lot additions. The property is in bylaw 8600 is zoned residential 1. The land is designated residential district in our official plan and is fully compliant with the provisions of the official plan. So what is happening this evening is when this alley was originally closed, it was closed all as 1 block of land. And the purpose of this evening is just to divide the individual parts, which are shown in red and blue, and with regards to the future semi-detached units which are going to be built here this owner chose to come forward and actually set out all of the lot lines for each of his units, and the timing in which the alley was closed versus when the plans were brought forward kind of conflicted. So that's the reason why we're here tonight, just to sever this alley and to allow those pieces then to merge with those lots. Once these mergers are complete, these proposed lots for these semi-detached units will be in full compliance with the zoning bylaw and meet or exceed the regulations thereof. And I'm available for any questions. Oh, actually, I'll just comment as well. There are 3 conditions which are part of our package this evening. The 12R plan, which we already have, and we'll confirm that there's not any further need for any changes. We need an undertaking from the solicitor just to confirm that those lot additions will happen and they'll occur properly and they'll be registered, and that all the conditions are then fulfilled by May 17th, 2025. And again, I'm available for any questions.
We hold off on the questions, right, Mr. Burgess, until administration?
Yes. So what we'll do is we'll have the agent for the applicant come forward.
Okay.
And then if there are any questions of myself and or of the agent, then you'll be able to bring them forward at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. John Tedesco, welcome. Agent, you may now speak to the matter. Please introduce yourself in a brief explanation of your application, and please confirm you have read and understood the staff report.
John Tedesco, 2135 Washington, representing LA Urban Square Limited. Basically, just a housekeeping. There is a fence all the way along, which we had put up already. It's just a lot additions and housekeeping, basically.
Is there anyone present or online who'd like to speak to the application? Okay. Does committee member have any questions of the agent?
Actually, for Alan, I just want, obviously, there's no services that are affected by the transference of the land.
No, these alleys were free and clear. I believe all the underground services were located on Edgemore Avenue, and each lot has an independent rear yard drainage system. So when they'll be constructed, so each one will have a drainage system. So there was no requirement for any further easements or other dedications. So as I had mentioned before, the severance of this property, it had just occurred as one block of land, or sorry, the conveyance of this property was conveyed as one block of land at the time of the alley closing. And the intent always was, though, that each of these parcels would have these individual blocks as outlined in the plan attached.
Thank you.
Just want to confirm any other questions to the agent? And any other questions to administration? So having heard any comments or concerns made by administration, agencies, and the public, is the committee ready to make a decision? And is there a motion for the 5 lot additions? Okay, moved by Maria, seconded by Vince. By Vince Marcotte. All in favor? Okay, and that was carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just have the conditions? I've never done it. Or you can just email.
The next meeting is June 21st, 2023. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Val, seconded by Maria. All in favor? Okay. Carried, and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.